Hello there. So today I want to talk about how I ended up leaving the vegan cult for good. This video is extremely hard to make and I filmed it probably 6 times now and keep stopping myself because I keep breaking down just in total fear of how the vegan cult is going to respond. Because as you know, when somebody leaves the vegan cult unjustifiably becomes so upset because somebody who once opposed animal sacrifice is now all for animal sacrifice. This is very culty behavior. Vegans and their cult just can't handle people going from opposing animal sacrifice to then being for animal sacrifice. I want to start from the beginning. For around 18 years, I participated in animal sacrifice for many different purposes. Some of these instances of animal sacrifice were for my own taste pleasure, for religious reasons, and many other important reasons. During these years of ritualistic animal sacrifice, I learned of a cult that went by the name the vegan cult. They were strictly opposed to animal sacrifice, which at the time in my head came across as very culty. So at the time, I took the vegan movement to just be a cult to be avoided because, you know, animal sacrifice isn't that culty, but opposing it is. I eventually came across a video from one of their leaders, one of their cult leaders, Earthling Ed. He was debating somebody who participates in animal sacrifice and was trying to convince them to no longer participate in animal sacrifice. I was so young and naive at the time and ended up watching the debate, not realizing that the person speaking out against animal sacrifice was actually the one engaging in very culty behavior. The cult leader would say really bizarre and culty things such as, hey, maybe we should stop systematically breeding, exploiting, raping, and murdering animals for a cheeseburger. At the time, these words did not come across as culty to me whatsoever. In fact, it seemed as though the cult leader was trying to get me to get away from culty behavior because I knew at the time that there have been cults in the past who participated in animal sacrifice and sometimes even human sacrifice. I'm ashamed to say it, but at the time when I was so young and naive, I watched that debate and fell fully for the vegan cult propaganda. I began to engage in extremely culty behavior without even realizing it. For example, I would walk into Walmart and then in a very cult-like fashion, instead of grabbing the cow's milk, I would grab the soy milk. Looking back, that behavior was crazy. At the time, I simply thought I was just grabbing one item instead of another item. But now that my vegan cult blinders are off, I see that I was participating in something much more dark, much more eerie. I was no longer supporting the sacrifice of animals for my cereal in the morning. I was no longer supporting the systematic rape and torture of dairy cows for milk. Now that I can see clearly, it blows my mind how incapable I was of viewing my behavior at the time as culty. The indoctrination and conditioning from the vegan cult ran so deep. I even went to some restaurants that didn't participate at all in animal sacrifice. These restaurants called themselves vegan restaurants, when in reality, they were religious centers with the sole mission of convincing people to stop stabbing animals in the throat for a cheeseburger. When you walked into the restaurant and sat down, like you would at any restaurant, the waitress would say, "Have you dined with us before?" trying to come across as friendly, when in reality, they were trying to see just how susceptible to their brainwashing and indoctrination you were. I would say, "No, I haven't." And then boom, they would say, "Oh, okay." And they would start to explain their menu and tell me about the special they had running for that day, followed by asking if I wanted to start off with water. I was so naive and brainwashed at the time. I responded with, "Sure, I'll have some water." I had no idea what I was participating in. After receiving my vegan cult water, with a sinister smile, the waitress began to ask me if I was ready to order an appetizer. That was the moment when I realized this was a cult. They had what they called vegan chicken wings, and this is how they spelled chicken on the menu. I remembered seeing in a documentary about cults that sometimes cult leaders will prevent their members from having access to the outside world and make sure their worldview is very strict and specific and void of any sort of conflicting information from the outside world. The cult members at this restaurant didn't know how to spell chicken. The vegan cult leader would not allow them access to the information that would help them spell the word chicken properly. This was the first clue I had that signaled to me that I was in a cult. Just really stressed out, I decided to go to the bathroom to try and settle down and relax. There were pictures of animals all over the bathroom, mainly cows, pigs, and chickens. These were all the animals I used to sacrifice before joining the vegan cult. There were signs that said vegan for them and compassion for all. I felt trapped. I was really starting to put the pieces together at this point. The vegan cult had convinced me that we should aim to respect the life of all sentient beings to the best of our ability. And of course, no longer participate in animal sacrifice. They wanted me to practice compassion for all. I eventually sprinted out of the bathroom in a panic and gained view of the employees in the back, or the cult members, and they were just laughing and smiling. Who knew what despicable cult-like behavior they were up to back there? From where I was standing, it looked like they were conducting some kind of ritual. And then I saw one of them was slicing lettuce. I ran out. For weeks, I was suffering from an internal conflict. I started seeing some people online going back to supporting animal abuse and identifying as ex-vegan. The vegan cult was very upset with these people for leaving the cult. I was just so unsure about why they took so much issue with people who once opposed torturing and murdering animals going back to torturing and murdering animals. Like, is torture and murder bad? The vegan cult's response to people leaving the cult just came across as so cult-like. Like, I get it. If we get mad at people for going against domestic abuse and then, supporting domestic abuse, yeah, we should be mad at that. And being mad at that is not culty. But if somebody goes from opposing the torture and abuse of animals to now supporting the torture and abuse of animals, we have no right to be mad about that. If we were to be, that would be culty behavior. Opposing animal sacrifice is culty behavior, especially when it's somebody who previously opposed animal sacrifice and is now for animal sacrifice. So eventually, I came across a very spiritual and wise guru who specialized in animal sacrifice. He explained to me that opposing animal sacrifice is a very culty thing to do, and that sacrificing animals is not. He told me that bacon is a very spiritual food and that pigs must suffer in gas chambers for us to thrive. It is their destiny. The ultimate sacrifice, he said. He also told me that cow's milk is holy and that when we steal milk from a cow, we're worshiping the cow. Theft is worship. And it's not only her that we're worshiping, we're also worshiping her calf when we steal them from their mother. This spiritual guru acknowledged that yes, we are taking the life from these animals during these animal sacrifices. But if we say a couple words before stabbing the animal in the throat, the animal will welcome the stabbing. The guru always emphasized that all of this is for the greater good. Stabbing and gassing is for the greater good. That was the quote he cited so many times. The quote came from his 5,000-year-old book that has been translated about 12,784 times. He also let me know that if I ever questioned whether we should be, sacrificing these animals and murdering them, that this is just the vegan cult still living inside of me and that I ought to resist these urges and these thoughts. To this day, I still suffer from some of the delusions I gained while participating in the vegan cult. For example, thinking that stabbing the animal in the throat is bad. But I just repeat the quote back to myself. Stabbing and gassing is for the greater good. And then I quickly snap out of this delusion. I'm so happy that I escaped this cult, and you can too. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you support my work and want to get early access to it and want help getting out of the vegan cult and want to participate in very not culty animal sacrifice, please consider supporting me on Patreon. And if you don't know, I do have a book going over most, if not all, of the arguments for animal sacrifice and how it's not culty. So if you want to get that as well, that'll be linked in the pinned comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude.
Fuck off, I don't want anything to do with you. Don't ever speak to me again. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude.